questions about the classified documents. First off, is the president willing to be interviewed by federal investigators about his handling of classified documents?
So first, let me just say I'm just not going to get into hypotheticals. This is something for the Department of.
Not a hypothetical question. There's an investigation ongoing. Will the president speak to investigators?
It's in ongoing review, right? You're asking me about something in the future, and I am telling you that I'm not going to get ahead of what the Department of Justice is going to decide. Look, I want to reiterate what you heard from the president today. It is important for the American people to know this. Is that the president has said he takes classified documents and information very seriously. This is something, as you all know, that he will not shy away from saying, and has continued to say this week. And again, he was surprised that these records have been found. He does not know what's in them, and his team, once they identified that these documents were there, they immediately reached out to the archives, to the Department of Justice, and did the right thing by turning that over. And they have been cooperating very closely with the Department of Justice. You actually heard AG, Attorney General Garland, say today that they heard from his team really shortly after the discovery. And so, I just want to make sure that this is understood, that he takes this very seriously.
So speaking of him taking this seriously, this is the kind of thing that can cause government employees to lose a security clearance. This is a serious matter, as the White House has said. Was the president sloppy in his handling of classified material if there are multiple locations where classified documents are being found?
Look, I said it in the statement. It's in the statement from his lawyer, Richard Sauber, and at the end, he said, "We are confident that a thorough review will show that these documents were inadvertently misplaced, and the president and his lawyers acted promptly upon discovery of this mistake." I'm going to leave it there. That's what his lawyer said. But again, this is something that the president takes very seriously, and we have been coordinating. They have been coordinating. His lawyers have been coordinating very closely with the Department of Justice.
The last thing is, the initial statement from the White House came out on Monday. The president addressed this on Tuesday in Mexico City. All the conversation was about the documents in the office. However, according to the Attorney General, documents were found on December 20th in his garage in Wilmington. Why was that not immediately addressed? Is the White House being transparent about that if that was already known and not discussed up front?
So you said transparent. I want to say that we have been transparent here. That is why the minute that his lawyers found those documents, they reported it. They reached out to the archives and the Department of Justice, and they did that voluntarily. And they were not compelled to do it. They did it voluntarily. Now, I want to step back a little bit as you're asking me about the timeline. Look, the lawyer said we have been working closely with the Department of Justice and coordinating a search that was still ongoing to ensure any additional documents were in the proper possession of the government. After that search, after the search concluded last night, we released a statement disclosing the facts from that search, as you all know, this morning. This is all part of the Justice Department process, and you heard the Attorney General speak to this today. So we are being very careful to be fully cooperative with the Department of Justice and providing details as appropriate as part of that process.
So why did you fully describe the documents when we were firstly asked this week?
Because, and I actually answered that question. I said because there was a process happening that was currently ongoing, and I'll refer you back to my comments that I made just yesterday. Go ahead, Mary.
Just a couple of things I want to clarify, just to make sure that our reporting is as accurate as possible. The special counsel's, the White House counsel's statement this morning said that documents were found in the president's Wilmington residence garage and in an adjacent room. But when the president mentioned this himself in person earlier, he said they were found in storage areas and in his personal library. So can you just clear this up? Which room, where were the documents actually found in his residence?
Okay, so let me just step back because I know all of you will have a lot of questions. So I'll lay this out very clearly and precisely. I don't want, clearly we want to make sure no one is confused, as you just said, Mary. As soon as the president's lawyers found these documents, they immediately contacted Archives and Department of Justice, as I've said many times already, to ensure that they were handled properly. The president has said this. We are being fully cooperative with the Department of Justice throughout this process as part of the president's lawyers look through the places where documents could have been stored, and the counsel's office released, as you said, a statement explaining that. So I would refer you back to the statement. I don't have anything more to say, but that search was completed last night, and now this is in the hands of the Justice Department. So look, I want to be very prudent here, as I said yesterday, as you all have reported over and over again. About any questions about this, any specifics, there's a review going on, and I would refer to Department of Justice or my colleagues in the counsel's office. But again, I'm just not going to go beyond what the president said. We just laid out the process that was taken.
It sounds like you're saying we should go off of the council's statement saying it was found in the garage in an adjacent room.
I'm just saying I'm not going to go beyond what the president said. I'm not going to.
Right? What the president's saying is conflicting with the council.
Mary, I completely understand. I just want to be very careful because there is an ongoing investigation. I want to be prudent here and make sure if you have any additional questions about where things were found, again, I refer you to the statement. I'm not going to go beyond what the president said.
And one other point of clarification. The president said Tuesday he was surprised to learn about the documents at the Penn Biden Center, that he didn't know what was in these documents. He didn't sort of repeat that this morning about the documents found at his residence. So was he also surprised to learn that they were classified documents at his residence, and does he know any information about what's in them?
He was surprised that the documents were there, and that is also in line with what we shared this morning. And again, he takes this very seriously when it comes to classified information, when it comes to classified documents. And again, it still stays the same. He was surprised that the records were found. He does not know what's in them. That has not changed. And again, his team, when they identified that they were there, they immediately reached out to the archives, reached out to DOJ, just as they did last night, and as we have pretty much laid out previously.
And one more, just because much has been made of the differences here between the way you all have handled these documents and the way that the former president handled documents that were taken from the White House. When the FBI, Garland said when the FBI went to the location being the president's residence and secured these documents, did the FBI just retrieve documents, or was there a search of the residence?
Again, I'm just not going to go into the particulars or the specifics of what the Department of Justice did. I can speak to what we have done and what is already out there. We laid out a statement pretty extensively on Monday. We've been laid out a statement this morning on what was found last night. I'm just not going to go beyond. I would refer you to the Department of Justice to give you the specifics on that. As you know, there's an ongoing process. There's a review currently occurring. Gotcha.
Thanks.
Okay.
Great. Can you shed any light on how the documents got to these places and why?
Again, there's an ongoing process. It's being reviewed. Don't have more to share. I'm going to let the Department of Justice answer any questions as they're looking at this.
Does the White House think that the appointment of a special prosecutor was warranted?
I'm not going to get into the decisions that was made by the Attorney General. I will say this, and you've heard me say this many times before. This is a president that believes in the independence of the Justice Department. This is something that he has been saying since the campaign, and you've heard me say this over and over in restoring that independence. So look, we have been very, very careful here not to appear from the White House to influence their decision making on any number of issues. As you've heard me say over and over again, I've said this many times. I'm sure someone has counted the amount of times that I've said that the Department of Justice is independent and we respect their independence. I am certainly not going to comment on or give my opinion. Are we going to give our opinion on what the Attorney General laid out today?
What broadly does the White House make of comparisons between President Biden's handling of documents and former President Trump's handling?
I'm not going to get into politics from here. What I can say is what I've laid out, which is the president takes this very seriously. He does. He said this twice. And he did not know that the records were there when they were found. He does not know what's in them. And what he did and what his team did is the minute that they realized that the documents were there, they reached out to the archives, they reached out to the Department of Justice. And I'll just leave it there, and I'll leave you all to pontificate and do your punditry. I will not do that from here. Go ahead.
Thanks, Corinne. In the statement from the special counsel that the second set of documents said the lawyers have completed the ongoing review by the president's legal team last night. Does that mean there are no other locations where documents could be stored? There's no other search underway at this moment in time for documents from the Vice President's time?
So as I'm just going to, again, that statement pretty much lays it out, that they have, as part of the lawyers, they look through the places where documents could have been stored, and the counsel's office released a statement on that. Now it is in the hands of the special counsel.
So we should assume that it has been completed?
You should assume that it's been completed, yes.
Okay, and then I just want to square something that Chris was asking about. The review was underway when you guys gave a detailed statement about the first set of documents. The review was underway when the president spoke about the first set of documents. You're now saying that you didn't talk about the second set of documents discovered almost a month prior because a review was underway. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense.
No,
The
I think
review was underway the entire time. The only difference was that reporters had information on the first set of documents, and therefore you chose to exclude the second set of documents until reporters got information on the second set of documents.
Well, let me unconfuse you for a second, Phil. Look, we are trying to do this by the book, and I said yesterday this was under review by the Department of Justice, and the process is as such. When the president's lawyers realized that the documents existed, that they were there, they reached out to the archives. They reached out to the Department of Justice. Rightfully so, may I add. That is what you're supposed to do as lawyers. That's what they did. And they have fully been cooperating with the Department of Justice. And again, I said this earlier in answering a question. You heard from the Attorney General. He said shortly after the documents were discovered, that we did outreach. The President's lawyers did outreach to the Department of Justice and archivists.
Nobody's questioning that. That's not what we're asking about. We're asking about.
I'm telling you that there's a process. I just laid out what the process is, and I'm
about the
telling you that
public
we
process
were
of-
trying to do this by the book, and it was an ongoing process. I'm not going to get beyond that, but that is how this works.
How can you say this
Yeah.
was transparent
Thank
when
you,
you've
Kareem.
sat on this information for more than 2 months?
Thank you, Kareem.
Thank you.
We are seeking information, and I appreciate and understand why the press office can only say so much. So help us understand this. Who are the president's personal counsel that the Attorney General referred to today?
I was asked that question earlier. Let me get back to you. I actually don't have that answer. I think I know who it is, but I want to make 100% clear.
Bob Bauer is one, potentially Dana Remus, James Garland, Robert Lennon. Are
Look,
they the ones that have been
so
contacting the Justice Department?
Look, again, I don't want to. I want to say the right thing from here. So we would have to. I would have to talk to the White House counsel, or you would have to reach out to the White House counsel to talk about who is his personal lawyers.
And to button
Who
this
are?
up, the first set of documents were found in November at the Penn Biden Center here in Washington. But why did it take until yesterday and until this morning, apparently, for whoever it was to inform Robert Lausch that that final document was found? Was that because there were press reports earlier this week?
Again,
And the
there's
hope was that nobody would find out?
again.
Or was it because...
There is a process, an ongoing process that is occurring. We did this by the book. And what I mean by that is the moment that the lawyers discovered that the papers were there or the documents were there, they reached out to the archives, they reached out to the Department of Justice, and they immediately, rightfully so, reached out to them to let them know what they had discovered. And that is the process. That is what that is what his lawyers did. Again, it's an ongoing process. As you stated in your question, I am limited in what I can say. It is now in the hands of the Department of Justice. They are reviewing this. As you know, the special counsel was announced by the Attorney General, and so I will leave it there.
What was the president trying to say when he referenced his Corvette earlier today? Because it sounded like he was implying that because his garage is a safe place for his car, the documents were safe. And therefore, if it was safe for the car, it was safe for the documents. Is that what he meant?
Look, I'm going to just leave his statement as is. I think your colleague was having a back and forth with the president. You can read the transcript of what was asked of him and why he responded that way. I'm just not going to get into specifics.
And you talk about we are being transparent. Who's we, and what is the definition of transparent in this case? Is it the lawyers being transparent legally with the archives and the Justice Department, or is it the White House writ large being transparent with the general public?
So number one, and I've said this multiple times already, we take this very seriously. The president takes this very seriously. He was not aware that the records were there. He does not know what is in the documents. Again, classified information, classified documents, he takes very seriously. When they were discovered, and this is the right thing to do, right? His lawyers reached out immediately to the archivists. They reached out to the Department of Justice to let them know that the papers or the documents assisted.
The archivist or the Justice Department? Because the Attorney General this morning said that the attorneys reached out to the archives. It was only later in December, when the second batch was apparently
I
found, that then they
will,
were reaching out to the Justice
I will
Department.
I will leave it to what the Department of Justice is laying out. What we are saying that we reached out to the archivist, we reached out to the Department of Justice. That is what is the right thing to do in this case. And not, and so I can finish here. What has been transparent in this as well is that the White House counsel has laid out in detail on Monday to all of you.
Not everything, Karine, and you know that.
First of all, I can't talk about this, right? Because it is, the Department of Justice is reviewing it. There is a review happening, Ed, right? You know this. We just heard from the Attorney General. There is a review. I am limited in what I can say to this.
Could Richard Sauber perhaps come here?
I
Stuart
think you
Delaware
should,
come
I
here?
think you should reach out to the White House counsel.
We're reaching out on a constant basis,
Okay,
so why not have them come here
okay,
to the
I am
room
saying
and
to
take
you
questions?
that we have put out lengthy statements, and you can reach out to them, as you all have been doing, and I will leave it there. Go ahead,
Well,
go
it's
ahead,
accepting you
go
to
ahead,
this,
go
Karine,
ahead,
then
Justin.
why not have them come and answer the questions?
They have been talking to you all pretty regularly the last couple of days. They have put out lengthy statements on this. I just read out what Richard Sarber had to say, and I would refer you to the White House counsel. I am limited in what I can say because the Department of Justice, we see them as being independent when it comes to these types of issues. And so I'm not going to go beyond what the president said, and I'm not going to go beyond what the lawyers say. I have to go around. You've asked me about, you've asked me, Ed.
Then that there's going to be a limit in transparency, public, non-legal transparency, in what can be shared and said by this White House.
I disagree.
Even
There has,
before
I
today.
disagree, Ed. There has not been a limit of transparency. That
These
is,
statements were
that
lacking
is,
information
that
on
is,
when
there has
exactly
not
these
been a
things were
limit of
found.
transparency. That I will disagree with you on that.
For
Justin.
2 months.
Justin.
Thanks, Karine. I did want to kind of follow up on what Ed and Phil were asking, which is putting aside the question of whether the president's lawyers acted properly in handing the documents over, there's this lingering question of why there wasn't an acknowledgement of the second set of documents earlier this week. And you said that you're working through a process and going by the book, and what I'm curious is if you're trying to sort of hint at the idea that the Justice Department asked you not to reveal the second set of documents, or you were told in some way not to disclose anything that had not been made public.
I would not jump to those two conclusions. That is not what I'm stating. I am genuinely saying to you there is an ongoing process that we are going to follow, and I am limited in what I can say from here. That is why my White House counsel colleagues we refer to them these past couple of days. Now this is in the hands of the Department of Justice, as you all heard from the Attorney General himself.
I think I guess I remain confused. If the Justice Department didn't ask you not to disclose these documents, why on Monday, as this news was coming out, Tuesday, as the president was talking about it, you didn't say, here's everything we know at this point? You know, the first set was found at the Penn Biden Center, the second set was found at his office. We're searching to make sure that there's nothing else.
Because there's an ongoing process, and you heard directly from the Attorney General today, and that is the process. That is how this is going to go. It is not going to come from here, from me at this podium. It is going to come from the Department of Justice, and that is just the process that's happening currently.